There we go. Welcome back, everybody, to Next Stage Podcast. We got Mickey Blurr in the studio today.
Hello.
He's a local musician. He's got a demo out on Bandcamp called Saturday. No, Dionysus. Dionysus 1 is the demo, and there is also a recent single called Fortune Teller that's out there on Bandcamp. We're going to be getting to that in a little bit, but before we get there, he's going to do an acoustic song to start us off today. And do you have a selection picked out, or are you just going to go off the top of the gourd here?
Let's, we'll do one that's not out.
Ooh.
Why not?
Debut.
Wow.
Have you played this one before, or is this a Next Stage debut?
So I've
Tell us it's a debut.
played it before, but this wasn't really... It's always just kind of an option in case of people actually requesting more, which has happened before to my surprise.
So this is your encore song.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
My band doesn't know it yet, so it's my, I guess I'll do it.
Well, they're learning it for the first time right along with us.
They're learning it.
This is Mickey Blurr's Encore. Is there a name for this, or is it called Encore?
Yeah, it's called...
One more song! One more song!
Thank you. It's called...
one more song!
It's called...
One more song!
All right, if you insist. It's called...
We do insist. I'll chime in. Come on, one more
All
song!
right. So do you want the title, or do you want to just call it one more song?
I don't... Dude, it's your show. Whatever you want to call it.
It's called Molly's Poetry Corner.
Nice.
All right. Molly's Poetry Corner by Mickey Blurr, debuting on the first podcast ever.
Molly in the corner with her Elvis flash. She's got deep green eyes and a yellow hat. She's looking so good, yeah, she's feeling so fine and big. She could be all mine, but she can't see this opportunity. She's focusing on synchronicities. Take a look at me, this big black jacket goes all the way past my knees. And these dark sunglasses, well, they actually help me to see in the dark, in the dark, in the dark, in the dark. But you can help me see the future. You wanna know the ways in which I love her? Well, I could tell you some pretty words to say. You can tell her how much I know you adore her, but I can't help you catch a dove in a cage. There'd be nowhere to go anyways. And so she gives me a pat on the back, and then he tips his hat and he heads for space. And I kiss him on the cheek if his face wasn't so distorted from the drinks that he takes. But he can't see this opportunity. He's wasting time with prose and poetry. Or is that just me? Alright, well, he's got it and she's got it. He's got it right. He's got it and she's got it. He's got it right. He's got it and she's got it. He's got it right. I have nothing left to say, and so I won't.
Woo! Yeah!
Thank you.
Nice. I like the way that ended. I've got nothing to say, and so I won't.
I will not.
That very,
I
abrupt
refuse to
ending.
say anymore.
I like that when a song, ends and leaves you kind of, hanging, because it's that's the ooh, clap part, you know?
Right.
It's sometimes, a song will, people will do, the dun, dun,
Right.
and like they'll draw out the ending. I like songs that just kind of
it kind of grabs you. And I like that because just in case people aren't paying attention, when it suddenly ends, they kind of have to come back to it. And if in some cases, if you're just listening to it as sort of like background music, I find like often like something that just abrupt, it drags me back in. And though I don't think that was even intentional. I think it was really just like how the lyric went, and then I just kind of like was like, oh, that's the logical like end it there, because that would be funny, I guess.
Yeah, well, the lyric sets it up for that, you know. It's like you're saying something and then proving it at the same time.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And that's cool. I like when lyrics complement the music well.
Yeah.
You know, and they go along with it because then it makes sense. And I know that you had said with in regards to your music that like lyrics are the most important thing.
I think ultimately, yeah. Just in the sense that I guess I music was kind of an afterthought to me initially. When I was like a kid and like all throughout high school and then like even like some college, like my intention was that I was going to be like a storyteller to some degree, and it always changed from like, so I start with short stories, and then you have your little high school phase where you're like, well, what if I was a poet?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh man, Jack Kerouac. But then you get over that because you realize that he was a jerk. But then I went to school for comics. I was gonna make comics, and I still doodle every now and then. But it's
really like illustrating.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite comics?
Ooh, I mean, the stuff that I was really studying was like old school Mad Magazine, like 1950s, and like the stuff before that by the same publisher, which Tales from the Crypt and that kind of stuff. I was really into that art. But then as far as comic storytelling goes, I guess it might be kind of cliche if you're familiar with like just avant-garde stuff in general, but I'm a big fan of Grant Morrison. He's like a maverick as far as tying in like esoteric themes with like grand scale, like modeling his entire story arcs off of some sort of like sigil he's created for some magic ritual or something. That kind of stuff really blows my mind. But yeah, I don't know, like Doom Patrol, if that's familiar.
Not to me, but probably to some people.
To someone.
I've heard of some of the stuff you're referencing.
Yeah.
So you got into like comics because you like the storytelling aspect?
Honestly, I think I just got into it because I really liked drawing as a kid, and as a result, I also just I grew up just watching cartoons like more than I should have probably.
Yeah.
But the things I was really drawn to were more like drew from mythology and everything, so that kind of ties into everything too. When I look back, it's just like too many things all at once, and I try to crystallize things so that I can explain it in a way that makes some degree of sense. But overall, I think I just get bored of things really easily, so I just want to grab something from everything. So I mean,
kind of like collage approach to putting it together, like you're grabbing from multiple sources.
Yeah, I mean, everything I do, just like whether I know it or not, is stealing from 200 things at once.
Yeah, I suppose that's true of anyone.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I mean, in terms of where were we?
I don't know, man. You said comics, so I just kind of went with that. Maybe scoot in like an inch or so, just so you're on camera. But how does that relate to your music, or does it inform your music? Does your graduation? I don't know if you want to call it that, but your transition. You said music was an afterthought. Comics came first. If you were interested in comics, like what made you then want to get into music? Did you see any of the same possibilities in music that you were finding interesting in comics?
That's interesting. I don't know. I think it's just like the fact that I get so bored of things so easily. So I spend a lot of time focusing on one thing, and then I'm on to the next project, and a lot of which has never been like publicized. Like putting out a demo was such like a big step in like doing anything, because I just really like to take my time with things, I don't know. I sort of like to create privately. I don't really share too much. But that's like the great irony of like doing music. It's like, it's sort of a communal art form. So you kind of are expected to share more. But how comics would tie into all that, that was the one thing that I did want to share. I desperately wanted to like have published comics, and how it ties into music, on the other hand,
like, how'd you make the switch? Like, what made you were digging on comics, and then why did you pick up music? Like, what did you start with? Did you play an instrument and then you weren't interested and came back to it later? Like, what was your entry point to music?
So I guess my entry point into like actually like performing music, it wasn't, you know, the primary thing that I wanted to do in any way. And sometimes I still question if it's like, you know, the primary thing that I like to do, but it is, you know, it is something that's very important to me. And it's a definite like mode of expression that's, has its own merit as opposed to comics. They're two totally different animals. And I think that's, I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't know that one informed the other, but as far as how I like went from one to the other, I do find the two like sort of inextricably linked in a lot of ways, but not in a concise way where it, you know, makes sense to do both. But it does make sense that a lot of people who do comics are musicians. I don't know if it makes sense that a lot of musicians would be cartoonists though, but
then you've got like Kiss where they're like a comic book music,
like
they've kind of embodied that duality of,
so I mean there's things like that, especially like where there are like, you know, performers who really put on the shtick that, you know, sort of blends the lines of I guess you could say like cartooning or character building or world building. I mean, talk about like Guar or something ridiculous like that, but
or what's that band that everyone compares to, Rush? They make all those graphic novels. The guy's got like a big afro. It's like escaping my mind right now. I feel inadequate that I can't call it to mind.
I'm sure you'll like remember it at the weirdest.
Like, wide-eyed sniper. He's got that like high-pitched kind of voice like the guy from Rush.
Oh, Coheed
and Cambria. Yes, that's the band I was thinking. They do the graphic novels around.
Okay, that's interesting. I haven't really dabbled in them too much.
I'm not saying you're missing much. It just popped to mind.
Yeah.
So you were more interested in the storytelling of comics and the way that world worked.
Yeah.
And did music do that for you? Like, why music? Like, what got you to play?
So I guess like the way of telling the story is entirely different. And as far as music and storytelling goes, I find that it's a good vessel for poetry, and no one really wants to hear a poem anymore. I mean, not no one, but you know, it's a very niche thing to be a poet. And I respect anyone who is dedicated to that craft, and especially because, I mean, poetry can take on totally different forms that have no real, I guess, like timed rhythmic sense, you know, like it's not going to be in a musical cadence all the time. But yeah, I mean, it's like a vessel for poetry. I've always been interested by poetry, and like I said before, especially like mythology and all of that. So kind of tying in these like disparate things, and I mean, like everyone likes music, so it's an interesting vessel though, because like music can emote so much, and what I find especially satisfying is that with music, it's a good, for me, it's like the lyrics are probably the most important part in terms of conveying the message, but I think the music often does come first, and what comes out of that is sort of this, there's this like primal thing that happens internally where it's like you'll play this one chord and then you have so many different like word associations with that, and you build upon it. And that, I think that's kind of why that demo was called like Dionysus. Is, I'm not sure, are you familiar with like the difference between like Dionysian and Apollonian art?
Yeah, one is more like the, I guess what in Freudian terms would be like the id, the exploration of physical pleasures. Yeah. Apollonian is more like aesthetics and you know, symmetry and
structure, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. So and then there's like the Nietzschean sort of philosophy, which is like the Dionysian. Yeah. It's talk about
Jim
Dionysus.
Morrison we're pointing to over here.
Jesus, yeah, talk about Dionysus. Yeah, just the primal raw thing. And that's an interesting philosophy that he had too, about the whole taking Nietzsche's philosophy on Dionysus and applying it to the blues. I think that's so interesting. But yeah, I mean, so I guess with that, it was like all these primal sort of like just. I sat down at a piano, and I don't really play piano, and I know like basic major minor chords, so I was like, I'm going to avoid those for a few of the tracks that I wrote, particularly the first one, Saturday. That's hard to say without saying Saturday.
I wondered if that's what you meant by that, like, because it's Saturday : for the boys, and
So
it's
it's
Saturday for the boys, because I don't.
Barstool thing.
So it's my brother is a big Barstool boy, and I just saw this really interesting parallel between how that whole like cult of young men who just drink and yell, and parallel between that and like the Bacchic cults of like ancient Rome and Greece. So that's where the whole Dionysus, and then satyrs, who are essentially followers of Dionysus, it all kind of ties in.
I got that sense because I had heard the track a few times, in the past, and just recently when you sent me all the lyrics, I was listening and reading, and I got the sense of what you were saying, of that, like, there was this, because the lyrics about, like, my cell phone's ringing, something about youth is calling, like, in quotes, as if, like, using as a cliche of like, we got to go out and do something because that's our purpose here.
Yeah.
But it also seemed like this misguided like debauchery for the sake of it, but without any real understanding of like, is there a spiritual side to it or not? Is this just like some stupid thing we do? And like the Saturday for the boys kind of made me think about that.
That all was. You have no clue how on the nose all of that was. That's great. Wow. I've never been so like psychoanalyzed by someone who's not.
I told you I was going to read the lyrics.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that song. Before I get too much into the lyrics, what I was saying was the Dionysian thing about that was that the piano. I just plucked out some chords. I had no idea what the hell they were, and they sounded similar enough to the chords that I use in the song. So I mean, they would be impossible to play on a guitar, I found when I laid them out. And the piano bit in the beginning is the recording of me just trying to figure those chords out, because the song opens with this little piano behind the guitar, or I guess it kind of sounds over it, but
almost like a sample then of yourself, kind of, because it wasn't really intended, but it was like used.
And then I doubled it on this vibraphone, so it's really it's just this kind of Brian Wilson approach to things. But those chords were just like very, very weird chords that I translated into, minors and major sevens and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's the sort of like primal thing, was like those chords evoked this sort of like mysterious feeling to me. And then from that, I found this sort of story which played into that. What was really weird too was because of just the way that I was using the different effects and everything, like the sort of like warbly, floaty chorus and everything. The thing I was reminded of was Swimming Pools by Kendrick Lamar. And I saw this like parallel between how, that song, and then you can like take that like, okay, well, how do you apply that to like dopey white kids, Barstool kids, my brother, who I love dearly, hello. And then...
He's your muse.
He is my muse, yeah. Call me Orpheus. And then... taking that and then just turning it into this story about like, youthful dissatisfaction and how, we gotta go do the thing, man. We gotta go do the thing tonight. Tonight is the night, which is such a cliche. And then, you kind of, playing off of that, I just found this like really, really silly story about like...
What is the chorus? It's something like pop one, drink one, something like it's almost like this. To me, I got the sense of like this automatic machine-like mentality towards like, I got to put these things in my body to have a good time, but it doesn't really lead to anything.
It's I'm going out there. There can be an ambiguous. I just kind of pictured
the big there.
I pictured a house party, but I pictured it with the inside of this house party, because I've seen, again, brother, so many Snapchats of him at these house parties. But I pictured it. Have you ever seen the Italian horror movie Suspiria?
No.
There's this really interesting...
Is that the one Tom York did a recent soundtrack to?
Yeah, they remade it.
Was that a remake?
They remade it,
okay.
Yeah. But the original, there's this really interesting lighting, which is like all these reds and blues that like combine into this like really just like
Purple?
yeah. But this you still have like these bright reds and bright blues, but then there's the center of it, and it just combines into this really sort of I don't know, just like off-putting, like hazy, dreamlike thing. And I just pictured like a party full of like these frat boys surrounded by satyrs who are all partying with them, and there's just like hazy purple, and they're all just like sitting back, like slumped over in a couch, and like walking past each other and kind of like bumping into each other, kind of like if you picture like your typical like zombie in like a mall in a movie where they're all just like, you know, plunging into each other. And that sort of image was like, oh, okay, so now I have a song. Yeah, and that's kind of where that one came from anyways.
Well, I definitely get that sense of that, you know. And isn't there something about, like, there's something... What is the chorus line? It's about, like, I won't regret it yet.
Yeah.
Is that one? Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. So it's like, I won't regret it yet. So it's like that calling back to, like, well, maybe there's a little, like, acceptance that, like, I know what I'm doing is stupid and pointless, but I'm going to pretend like it's not for a little while.
For a little while, yeah. It's sort of like...
So you have that yet, like, almost like a tacit, like you're tagging it on after the fact.
Yeah. What I really liked about that one was that it's sort of... the yet kind of defines the whole thing, because the whole thing is essentially just about this almost like methodical, like repetitious... I don't know, you almost become like this weird, like, monolithic, you know, organism when you're all just doing the same thing over and over again. And I think it's just so interesting that there are a lot of people who do, like, you know, party every night, like, particularly in, like, college towns and all that. And then there's this idea of, like, on the outside, there's this, like, you know, this is great, this is awesome, and, you know, like, going home the next day and just, like, watching, like, videos you took of the party last night. But then, you know, eventually you reach this dissatisfaction where it's like, I can't be doing this every night for the rest of my life. And then I'm just so interested by the reflection when people reach that point, when they, like, actually sit back and they're like, wait, this isn't healthy, I'm losing my mind, I have no ambition. Like, I'm so interested in watching people reach that point because I root for them to get there. But when they do, it's so tragic because you almost wish that partying forever would work out for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the yet sort of defines the whole.
So did the other songs on the demo explore that further? Like, what's the next track on the album after that?
So overall, like, the album...
Does it tell that story, or were they really just kind of like different songs you were writing around the same time? Because I picked up some similar themes in there. I don't want to, like, project onto your your art
onto something.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of it too is just stuff that I was writing at the same time. But then I kind of, like, went back and refined everything because I realized there was, like, this narrative, and then I sequenced the songs on the demo to, like, play it in the order of telling the story. So the second track is Edward and Oz, which is just about, I guess, failed potential. The character is, like, someone who's greatly talented, and so unaware of how talented they are, and falling into the trappings of just sort of, like, hedonistic culture and doing sort of nothing to take what they're incredibly capable of into somewhere that would translate well to, I guess, benefit their life in some way. I really wrote it about a specific musician who I don't want to put on blast, but
it's okay. We don't need to call anyone out here, but
on blast. I'm a millennial. Where's I going with this? Yeah.
So it's continuing that you said that Dionysic, you know, debauchery. So the Saturday, whatever it was, like the intro, and this next song was like somebody
sort of
being
reflection.
Consumed into that world. It's like, here's the stage, and, like, now some characters coming into that stage, and here's what happens to them.
And it's a reflection on what it is to. It's like an outside reflection. It's not that the character is necessarily reflecting on his own actions, but that
third party observer.
A third party observer, is reflecting on
omniscient.
Or
no?
I'll let you decide.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll just say it's me.
Are you omniscient then?
I'm the god of the album, so
Okay, so you are omniscient in this context.
I'm Dionysus in this context.
Fair enough.
Yeah, just sort of this more introspective look at how that might affect someone who is, you know, has a great potential and has a great ability to create or you know, really contribute something wonderful to the world, but doesn't realize it because they're so caught up in just not taking care of themselves and not really interested in what they have to offer. Yeah, that's.
Are there particular like lines or words in that you think kind of like are your favorite, like summarize, or like things that are? What's the chorus of that one? I know. I mean, if you tell me, I'll probably.
The chorus is a picture with no frame.
Yes. Okay, I remember that now.
Like broken art, you're a talent with no name. No, I think the lyric I'm most proud of from that one is just this one line that's you're a poorly written eulogy for a friend.
Wow. So it's saying like you used to know them as a friend, but now you're seeing them as another, like a.
I think it's more just the idea that like you're a bad summary of a lifetime that could have been put much more eloquently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A blown opportunity, to put it bluntly. Mm-hmm. And then, what's the next track on the demo? I'm testing your own knowledge of your own material here.
I believe it's Panic.
Okay. Now that one, does that one have the line like "You're shaking faster than fires at sea"?
That's the fourth one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was one of my favorite lines, clearly, because I remembered it.
Right.
But anyway, we won't get to that. Was the Panic one, or was that about like anxiety, panic? Because that's the one that's like something about I'll make your heart bleed.
Yeah.
I will die screaming something.
Panicking and screaming. Yeah.
Panicking and screaming. When I was listening to that, I thought of it as almost like a call and response of like the panic speaking to the person saying like I will make your heart bleed, and the person accepting like I will die panicking and screaming. It's almost like that because I have anxiety and panic 'cause I've had that for a long time, and I understand when you feel like there's an entity in you that's like controlling you, that's like making your life worse, and then you're like subservient to that,
right? And
it's like this inner conversation that creates the tension,
right?
I don't know if you meant that, but that's what I brought to it.
I didn't, but I like that. I like that. That's a really great interpretation. I mean, the thing to me that's so interesting about like lyricism, especially music, is just like it's a communal thing. Like you can decide what it means to you, and you're completely right. That's
what I like about your lyrics is they're not obvious.
Yeah.
And I know you said you're a big lyrics person, and I am too. And it's not so much that I have to, lyrics have to be right, but I feel like a bad lyric will ruin a song for me more than like a nonsensical lyric.
Right.
Like sometimes a lyric is bad. I'm like, you've lost me. I'm done. I don't care what else you say. Like you killed it for me.
You know what?
And your lyrics are so open to interpretation that like I never feel that sense of I'm being like told something too directly.
Yeah. You made me think of something that I'll just mention briefly because it's really funny to me and I just feel like it's relevant about it, like a bad lyric ruining a song. I thought there was a bad lyric in, I think it's Tombstone Blues by Bob Dylan, when he says the sun's not yellow, it's chicken. And when I was a kid, I was like, that's so stupid. And then I grew up and I was like, oh no, yellow and chicken both mean like timid and cowardly. And when I got that like much older, I was like, the song is saved.
Yeah.
The song is saved. But I just like, for the longest time I was like, what the fuck does he, that's so stupid. The sun is chicken. And then of course, no, like metaphorically dum-dum. But Panic, and not telling people what to think about the lyrics. I try not to be too heavy-handed because a lot of the time, I mean, it's not even that I actively try not to be heavy-handed. A lot of it is just it's word associations, and I think I've spent a lot of time reading like really weird ethereal, like I study the occult a lot and like metaphysics and just like
you do a podcast, right?
Yes.
Tell people about your podcast real quick. Here's a quick plug.
Occult Connecticut. It's all about the occult in Connecticut, and that's it really. I just find that there's a lot of like weird folklore in Connecticut, but But I also find that there's this conflation that occult inherently means like Satanism. Like people hear
It just means
occult.
hidden, right?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, it means just like hidden knowledge. And
The rock and roll is steeped in the occult. Like it's kind of all.
There's a great book about it called Season of the Witch.
I'm reading that currently.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a fantastic.
Funny you should
book.
mention it.
Yeah, Peter Beavergall. Yeah, that was my Bible for a minute, but I just picked up this coffee and didn't sip it. There's something so comforting about holding it.
Yeah, there's like that compulsive nature.
Yeah.
You're going through a ritual that you don't even realize. Maybe you should write a song about the ritual of coffee.
I was reading about coffee magic recently. There's
Coffee
apparently
magic?
there's like
How's your sigil magic game?
I dropped that.
Yeah.
I was really interested in that for a minute, but I find it's a beginner's game.
Yeah. So how about coffee magic? Is this like a Starbucks thing, or is this like
Yeah,
real?
you go to Starbucks and you order off the secret menu because it's occult knowledge.
Yeah.
But yes.
Satanists have a Starbucks menu?
Oh, you would not believe it. We have the
Coffee's
darkest.
hotter than hell.
Yeah. Blacker than my magic. What were we talking about? Panic, right? Yeah.
You drink too much of this secret coffee, you're gonna have a panic attack.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Nitro cold brew. Yeah, blue. Why not? Anyways,
Nitro Cold Blue. That's a good song name.
it is. Take it. Steal it. That's yours. It's a gift.
He's gifted it to you.
So that idea you had about the call and response, I actually really like that. But no, I think it was more the idea of someone on their deathbed and surrounded by their family, and like, you know, you kind of expect to like, you know, hold their hand as they pass on, and they like accept it gratefully. And it was like, well, I was terrified of dying when I wrote that. And all I could think of is like, when I die, I am not going out gently. Like, I am going to freak out. I'm going to be so scared, and I will be screaming.
Yeah.
And so it was just this idea of like being surrounded by my family and being like, oh God, no, and then just being dead. And so the idea was like, yeah, I mean, it would just like tear out your heart to watch someone you love freak out and then die.
Yeah, man.
So that's
way
what-
heavier than I thought, but you're absolutely right. That is the most terrifying moment to consider.
Yeah.
Of like, it's probably the ultimate panic attack.
Yeah.
Combined with the DMT experience.
Yeah.
Apparently.
So that was the chorus, but I mean, the rest of that song, I
It's
guess.
kind of a shorter one, right?
Oh, that's a longer song. Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking of a different one.
Yeah, that song overall is, I mean, structurally the most complicated, I think, of all of them. But it takes a lot of influence musically from. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the band Television.
Yeah.
And then
They were like one of those, I guess, the more accessible of like the noise rock that was going on, like, you know, Mars was a
like
little more
post-punky
further
kind of, yeah. And then and like, you know, Talking Heads was on that a lot, but then a lot of like just the rhythm of it was all like James Brown.
I get a lot of Bowie stuff from you in ways in the music, you know.
Yeah. That I try to hide it.
We all try to pretend like we're not like the people we admire.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to make that connection, so I'm going to pretend the other direction.
You know, it's easier to just tell people that I'm trying to be Iggy Pop because Iggy Pop was just trying to be Bowie. But with Bowie's guidance.
Blessing, yeah.
Yeah, but
spent time in Germany together.
Oh yeah. I was in Germany. I visited the studio they did Heroes at, and that was mind blowing. But Panic, yeah. Lyrics overall, sort of just like a selfish song. I wrote it in a very selfish mind. I just was so tired of being around people, and so tired of being involved in other people's lives, and I was so tired of. It's really just like it's a song that I should have wrote as a teenager, because it's like, you know, you can't tell me what to do. I'm so tired of all of you people and your advertisements. But you know, then I whittled that down into, well, how can you explain that dissatisfaction going back to, you know, the whole overarching story of everything. And so then, yeah, it's just sort of like about, well, what if you woke up to that realization of you're like super talented and you have this great ability that you could contribute so much to the world, but you are swallowed by a sea of like nepotism and all these sort of different just cultural standards which don't align with, I guess, what you're able to put out. It's sort of like the idea of a constructive force that could contribute something good in a world that does not admire anything more than just sort of. I mean, again, like the world now being this sort of hedonistic thing, and this person like waking up to the idea of like, I don't want a part of this. I don't want any of this.
Kind of like waking up into a nightmare.
Yeah.
Wow.
And realizing you were in this sort of like microcosmic nightmare of like what the whole world at large is essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. You know, when I listen back, I'll have a different backstory. But I was getting some of your, things through it, and I guess putting my own. But now hearing that there is a overlying thread makes sense, because I was picking that up, but I wasn't quite sure. I didn't want to read into it. And then the fourth one, is that the one that I said that has the line? I love that line.
Yeah.
What was it? You shake faster than fires at sea, or shudder faster than fires at sea, something like that.
You're shaking faster than fires fade at sea. I think it was.
Fires fade at sea. Yeah. That line like really just jumped out at me.
Yeah.
That was one of those like perfect poetry lines.
Thank you. I was just thinking of when you have like oil on fire on top of water, but I was thinking of like, well, what if just like a giant wave crashed over that fire, and how fast that's like an apt metaphor for I don't know, just like the fire of, and this again gets into like the whole Greek myth, because I'm like really interested in all that, and like Prometheus, who brought the fire down from the heavens and gave it to man, and as a result was punished to have his liver eaten forever. But so there's this fire of life, and how quickly it can just be completely taken away by in tarot and many other just sort of esoteric ideas. Water signifies emotion, and so like, what if you just had this like great emotion consume the fire of life that you have kind of going on? Yeah,
that's very true, man. That can happen, where a situation comes into your experience that suddenly dissolves or destroys what you thought you were. And it's, as you said, like water on a fire, like it can happen that quickly, or all of a sudden like your world's turned upside down or destroyed. Yeah. And that song is called
Mickey the Knife.
Mickey the Knife. Oh, that's okay. What have you done?
Yeah.
And
it's got a nice bass line to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I took an old song that I wrote in like a punk band in high school, and I just literally verbatim applied like a rhythm from a Luther Vandross song to it. And that was it. And then
the Dark Horse is coming for you.
Coming.
That's the term, the Katy Perry Dark Horse song. There was some controversy over whatever, some kind of like copyright things.
Did
we
we
always
cover that?
Yeah, that's why we called it like the Dark Horse is coming for you. If there's any like copyright.
Got it. Yeah. No, I mean it's just that old like Philly soul rhythm. It's got that like really like, I don't know, it kind of like it like lifts and then like drops back in. Yeah. It's kind of got that like, anticipation of like when the thing's gonna hit, and like opens up for a second, and yeah.
And that one, like, what did you have like a vision for that song of like what was going on with the character, or was that just kind of like it fits the theme? And I don't know, like
it's like a devil on the shoulder type thing.
Yeah.
It's the most selfish song, and it is the one where I sort of impose the omnipotent narrator as the god, and that being Mickey the Knife, and me being Mickey the Knife.
Yeah.
The title coming from
Mac the Knife, I'm assuming.
Mac the Knife, yeah. Because I was really, really interested in there's this film adaptation of the Three Penny Opera. I wish I could remember who directed the film adaptation, but I mean it's fantastic. I think it's in the Criterion Collection. But I was just like watching that a lot and thinking about that sort of like weird mob culture, and I don't know how I got to just like the idea of like, this like criminal god on your shoulder, and inferring to you that like you are more important than everything else, and you need to like kill the old ways, you need to like kill the old gods and take like this righteous throne, and it's just like disgustingly selfish.
Yeah. Well, it definitely comes across in that, and that's again, I guess you're saying exploring further down that here's the intro, and then here's where you go further into that world of do what thou wilt.
Yeah. If you want to think about it in that way, yeah, I mean, like the whole thing from the top is just like kind of being dragged into like a pit. But then I mean, it sort of inverts. It inverts, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
I feel like it doesn't have a satisfying ending, because the next one is Bad Star, which then I started tying in these ideas of like time travel, and that one sort of takes place during like World War II with like I had this nightmare. And then I decided to write a love song about it.
Whoa. Let's explain that a little bit.
So I had this nightmare that I was in like 1938, like, I don't know, Europe somewhere. And there were these Nazis with machetes. And I don't remember who. It was someone I knew, but they were like hacking her like limbs off. And then there was this deer that was like running wild in the street with like, it was bleeding from its head and just like shrieking. And then I just woke up freaked out, and I was just like, I am writing a love song about that.
Is that the one that has like the line of like the fascists something?
Yeah. The original line, so it's these fascists have intentions to take me far away, but originally it was these fascists with machetes have come to take my arms and legs or something like that.
You just kind of dialed it back a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, well, that's a little much. But yeah, so it's sort of like, it's sort of I don't know, like when you have a cause in the midst of being like, you know, dragged into this pit of despair and this pit of selfishness, and then like you kind of have to be selfless in the face of, you know, such hideous adversity as like fascism or you know, any sort of, you know, just
authoritarian
horrible,
situation, or I guess that can be applied to situations where you don't have a choice.
Yeah, and you have to be selfless in that sense, I think. So it was sort of like, well, what if you were in that position where you've been like convinced that you are so much more important than everything, and then you were put into this world where you have to take into account that if you don't drop yourself for a minute, like so many other people are going to be harmed, and then all of a sudden, you know, it clicks and, you know, other people have value. And then by exploring that idea, it was like, you know, I feel like someone in that situation, it would be like a catalyst that they could even like, you know, they could feel love finally if they never had before. So that's, yeah, kind of where that one was at.
So almost like the extreme adversity wakes up the inner human of the person, where like they might have had this hard or disconnected shell or some, you know, version of themselves that was disconnected from the human experience, that it takes an extreme example of suffering to like pry them out of like, you have a heart and you have love.
Yeah.
Bang.
Takes off the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's too firmly rooted, it might take a more extreme circumstance.
Yeah. It, I guess unstaples the skin mask, if you want
so
to
use
a
a
Texas chainsaw analogy. Toby Hooper, where you at? The grave, actually. R.I.P. baby. What's after that?
And then which is the one that's something about, I don't want to be your muse?
That one was Panic.
Okay, that was Panic. Okay,
yeah.
That one was Panic. I'm confusing like I said, I listened and read like 3 times in a row, so they all kind of like blended in my mind.
Yeah, the last one is Kuroneko.
What does that mean?
It's Japanese for black cat.
Oh, okay, well, that makes sense, because say black cat.
Yeah.
In the lines, I didn't know what.
Yeah, that's just like if this person, through all of what they've gone through, suddenly finds this muse after being like, you know, I don't want to be the muse, I want everyone to leave me alone, and then seeing like all this tragedy and suffering and sort of waking up to the idea of like, okay, I can have emotion, and then they suddenly find their own muse, but there's this like doubt in it, and that's sort of why I say it has this unsatisfying ending, is like the whole thing, that one, I don't know, I was kind of just trying to write some sort of like croony Elvis thing, but then the ending of it is just sort of like, who can I pretend to be if you were to say that you don't like me? I question all of my movements. You don't, but you don't know me yet. And that's the note that the whole thing ends on. And I just, you know, had this idea of, you know, even if you awake to all of this and sort of like find some kind of purpose, if you've been this horribly selfish person and you're invested in that, it takes a lot to break that. And so with getting to a point where you're starting to feel selfless, there's going to still be this doubt inside where you're like, okay, well, I'm really happy to have found this love, but I'm bad, and they're gonna find out eventually. Just that kind of thing.
Like an identity crisis. It's like I like to be good, but I still might know my own dirty secrets.
Yes.
So I can't fool myself into thinking I'm a good person.
Yeah.
So then I guess maybe that's where transcendence kicks in eventually.
Yeah.
And you have to find
going
that
back
struggle.
to Do What Thou Wilt, in the guitar solo, there's that little recording in the background. That's a wax cylinder of Aleister Crowley reading
Is that
a poem.
really?
Yeah.
I was like hearing that, I'm like, okay, so
It's a love poem Aleister Crowley wrote and then recorded to wax cylinder in like the 20s, 30s, yeah.
So I was wondering about that because that's obviously like that sample is at its own rate. Like, did you have to construct the song and like the rhythm in order to fit that at the right timing?
It just worked.
I was wondering,
so
did you plan that? Because I'm
lucky.
like, this is clearly like a sample, and it happened to work
just
with the
worked.
rhythm. So
it was
just
so lucky. Yeah, it just worked.
well, that's good. It did jump out to me. And I was
Yeah.
like, how did this get planned? So magic.
Yeah.
There you go. It must have been destined to be. So that's the run through of Dionysus 1. Is there going to be a Dionysus 2, or you don't know?
I think there might just be a Dionysus.
Yeah.
without a.
You should have called that one Dionysus 2 to make people wonder, like, where's part 1?
That was kind of what I was thinking, honestly.
Oh, you should have, man. You
I
missed
know.
Call it Dionysus 4. You know, really set up the
Star
the
Wars
hunt.
type track.
So then you always have a chance to explain previously. But man, like I'm glad we got to like dive into and like explain the lyrics, because I do really like your lyrics. As I said, I like the fact that they're not too direct and that they are like bits of poetry in there. Like I like your lyrical style. I really do.
I really appreciate
and I didn't find any bad lyrics that jumped out to me. And it did help to read them while listening, because I listened at first, and then like reading while listening like gave me a better sense of what was going on in there. So like, what do you hope to do with your music? Is this still, what's the future? Is there a future? Like what's gonna be, the next thing you do, or what do you want to do with it?
I guess ultimately, I mean, like we just do better recording. Just play out a lot more. I mean, I have a lot more songs and I'd like to record them, and I guess I don't know, there's that internal conflict of like people expect you to share your music, so I should, but I don't necessarily always want to. But I don't know, I mean, I guess I might as well, right? Give it a shot.
Let's do it on Next Stage Podcast.
There you go. You're gonna do one on the tail end of this, right?
Sure.
You're gonna do a song. So if you could say like, what has music done for you? I don't necessarily mean like you playing music, but maybe the music that you like. Mm-hmm. Like, what is the importance of music in the greater picture of humanity and the human experience? Like, what has it done for you, and what do you think it could do for other people?
That is a big question.
I know. I like those big questions.
Yeah.
You get put on the spot on this show.
That's a big one every
I have a question.
Oh, turning it around.
No, not turning it around. Are you able to cut this so I can use the bathroom and come back to this?
You can just go up and use the bathroom, and we'll just,
we'll do that.
It'll be part of the show.
You two talk.
It doesn't matter, We're not going to edit any of this, but you can go.
If he's going to the bathroom.
I know. I mean, a man like that, he should use magic to facilitate this. All right, well, everyone's going to the bathroom, so it's just going to be the me show for now. But if y'all get a chance to, please check out Mickey Blurr's demo, Dionysus 1. It's available on Bandcamp. And there's a lot to dig into there lyrically. I don't remember if all the lyrics are available on the actual Bandcamp site. I know on the recent single he's put out, there is the lyrics below it. But he's got a lot of good ideas, and I like the music, and I really do like the lyrics. So it's always good to hear somebody explain their story of what they were intending, or maybe just what they were thinking about, like where their headspace was when they write lyrics. We don't always get a sense of where the lyrics come from. There's so many songs that I've heard, I'm sure many people have heard, you wonder like, what the heck were they thinking when they wrote that, or what inspired that, or like, why did they choose this phrase, or why did they use this. Like, I think this song's about that. Well, I think it's about this. And there's always those questions about where the inspiration comes from and what the intention of the, I guess, artist, if you want to call it an artist, or writer, the author, the performer, what their intention was. And you don't often get that. You don't often get to dive into that subconscious world or that conscious world that makes these lyrics, come to fruition. So I always like to find out what people were thinking about when they were, putting their songs together, to see it doesn't line up with what I thought, because you hear a song, you might have your own idea, and then the person says, nothing like that at all. You're way off. Or they might say, yeah, you know what, that's what I was going for. And I think in a way that does kind of inform how you listen, because you develop a sense of intuition in ways where you can trust that what you're getting from the lyrics and what the person's putting across is actually what they're meaning, and then the whole world of songwriting and lyrical poetry becomes richer because you feel more interacted with it, or you feel like you're interacting more with it, and it's not just this like thing in a glass case you're supposed to admire. It's like, no, you bring yourself to it. You bring some of you into the story, and then you're part of the story, and then you're not just like an observer on the outside. I hope some of that made sense while I was
put some
writing.
nice thematic music behind that.
Yeah.
Just like storytelling with Scott.
There's
like,
something
Go on
so
harmonica.
authentically human about not cutting away from a bathroom break that I really
Dude, there's
appreciate.
no cuts here.
That's great.
It doesn't matter. This is the real deal. You do
If there
it.
is a cut, it's it's gonna be about Scientology. With,
Yeah.
yeah.
It'll be right before you showed up, and then it'll just be like,
right.
testing. Or this is a real emergency.
Yeah.
No. So how are we doing on time here? Where are we at?
I mean, we're coming
About
up on
an
the
hour? Okay, so I guess maybe if there's any like kind of
The big music
Yeah,
question.
the big music question. We
The
haven't
big
gotten to the
music
big
question.
music question. Wait, I gotta chime you back in.
Okay. Love it.
The space.
I'm back. Okay. The big music question.
Are you the same as when you left?
No.
Good. Because that means you didn't do anything in there.
I'm emptier.
That's good.
And then I continued to sip on this coffee, so give me like 2 minutes and I'll pee again. But big music question. Wow, music, importance, the world, etc.
Yeah, like what has it done for you? What gravitated you towards it? And then what do you think it can do for other people? Because I have to imagine if you're making music, you believe in the power of it to some extent. Like, what was that power that you felt that made you want to do it? And like,
Yeah, I mean, not to wax too poetical in this whole like esoteric thing, but the
Too late for that, man.
But I mean, there's this like there's something so inherently human, and depending on the music, but I like all music really. I can't really say that there's too much music that I don't like. But at the heart of everything, I mean, in terms of artistic movements, I'm very much a romantic. So I find this very human, spiritual thing that will come from music, and I mean, there's this I don't know, there's this interesting thing where so if you're familiar, I don't know why I ask if you're familiar, you are, with Percy Shelley. There was the whole concept he had that poetry was religion to him because he was like a staunch atheist, and this was in the late 1700s, I want to say, when that was just very much frowned upon. Yeah. But he found God in poetry, and his gods were like, the old pantheons, but not in the literal sense, but in what they represent and how they sort of represent the human spirit. So if you apply that to music, it's very much the same thing. Music is this great, representation of the human spirit, or it can be anyways. In some senses, it's purely a
recreational dance noise.
Recreation. Well, I was gonna say, I guess a practical means of income, but looking at you, Motown. But yeah, I don't know. Just there's a great deal to be said about I mean, like, why do we even do music? Why are we so drawn to these sounds? I don't know. Yeah, you've opened up a big door. There's a lot. I just have more questions than answers right now, honestly.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess to me, what I would say is, like, as far as music goes and like what it can do is just open you to exploring. And I think it's really important with music to always go in with an open mind to like anything, because I don't know, like growing up, I as a, you know, like when I was first like really devoting myself to music, I was like one of those kids who was like, well, if it's not rock music, I hate it. And then, you know, I eventually grew out of that. And then what I found is that it's, I mean, just like anything like literature or film, it's just like you're enriching your world, you're seeing different perspectives, and yeah, it's just.
So you think it makes different parts of the human experience accessible in a way that like might not have been before, because when it's put in this format, you can put yourself into a different world that might have taken a lot more time for someone to explain it to you.
Yeah, and beyond that too, it's there's just such emotional resonance that you almost like, you know, you never know where you're gonna find it. I found not too long ago there was this album that's become so important to me, which I never would have anticipated, because I had always put off this band. There's this band called Japan, from like late 70s, early 80s, but they put out this record, I want to say 1982, called Tin Drum, which is, I mean, so ahead of its time in terms of what it's doing creatively and experimentally with like synthesizers and combining all of that in with like live band instrumentation. They like layer a drum machine over a live drummer, and it's so ahead of its time in that sense. But I had always kind of put them off, because to me I was like, yeah, they just look like some like one trick pony new wave band, and you know, I was so opposed to that, especially because I don't know, like I was like a punk kid, so new wave to me was always like diet punk.
Punk light.
So yeah, I mean, like recently that album came into my life. I guess not recently, like a year or two ago. But
in relation to the book The Tin Drum, do you know, have you ever read that?
As far as I know, that's where they took the title from.
Okay.
But it's weird because the whole album is this concept about living in like Japan during their reign of Mao.
So I could see the connection.
Or sorry,
to
not
the Tin
Japan.
Drum.
Sorry, I meant China. The band is called Japan. Yeah. Where was I going with that? Yeah, human spirit, interesting. I don't know.
So what do you want your music to do? Like, what do you hope to do with your music? Have you ever thought about it, or is it just like a compulsive creation? Do you have any like biggest aspirations? What do you want your music to do? How do you want it to affect the world, or do you not want it to? I don't know.
I don't know. I just want to tell a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to tell a good story. Well, that's good enough, man.
Yeah.
That's hard enough to do. So I think, I mean, do you have any like final thoughts or things you want to get out before you do your outro music here, about, you know, the journey you've been on with music, what it, you know, what you want to do with it, because you clearly have a spiritual, metaphysical inclination side to you, like searching for answers in the universe, and it seems that music has, at least for a period of time, been an avenue you're interested in exploring. Like, does that relate into something greater you're seeking that you think the music's part of?
I think so, yes, absolutely. I mean, if you just think about the fact that music is almost inherently linked to any spiritual practice in the history of human beings, you know, whether that be, you know, like Orphic devotionals in Greece, or, you know, you can go to the fact that chant and mantra is so important in different facets of Buddhism, or even like voodoo. And yeah, I think that music in a lot of ways inherently represents this thing like bigger than being human, and being that it's like such a communal form of art. If it's not, you know, because I can't tell you what I really believe in spiritually. I'm just interested in exploring it all. I have no answers. I have a lot of questions, and I'm never dogmatic about any of it. But I will say that, like, in terms of how music can play into all of that, it's sort of almost greatly emphasizes the idea of this like universal consciousness. It's like everyone contributing to this one big story, and everyone pulls from everyone else. And you know, if you really wanted to sort of tie it all together, like every form of music will lead to another form somehow historically. You know, jazz, blues, rock and roll, pop, hip hop, et cetera, but even like beyond that, you can just go with like how different classical cultures have pulled from each other. So it's just this gigantic intermingling of all things. It's almost you can kind of look at it as like the Buddhist or like even Hermetic idea of like all things being one, and that it's all connected, and that, you know, it's not even that there are separate things. It's just that there's one big thing that is all entirely connected. And yeah, I mean, it's like, it's overwhelming, but it's like, it's so interesting.
It's a beautiful thought, man. Like that, putting it together the way you just did there, like it makes the idea of genres seem completely silly.
Yeah.
And stupid.
Yeah,
and
I
like,
hate genres.
It's putting rules on things that should have no rules.
I hate genres. People ask what I do all the time, and I mean, I guess like I could technically whittle it down to something, but I really don't have an answer, and I don't want to have an answer, you know?
That's the best answer you could give. Yeah. So do you want to do one tune?
Sure.
To you know, put a cap on this all.
Let's put a cap on this all.
Yeah, this one need a cap. Oh, okay,
do not.
I tried. I'm good.
He tried.
Dad humor, you know.
I know it well.
Does it have the tuners? It should still be pretty good, right?
Yeah, you got this guy.
Okay. What's the name of this tune you're gonna do for us here?
You know, I haven't thought
Give you a
about which
little
one I
more
should
room.
do. I guess I could do. I guess I'll do Edward and Oz. That's the second track on the demo guy.
So this is off of Dionysus 1. Check it out on Bandcamp. Mickey Blurr doing Edward and Oz live on Next Stage.
Dying, you feel the same as the timid lion. A picture with no frame, a broken heart, your talent with no name. Picture with no frame. Broken heart, your talent with no name. Eulogy for a friend. You're like a sad embrace, alone again. Picture with no frame. Broken heart, your talent with no name. Picture with no frame.
Mickey Blurr, thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you.
And coming out here and doing the episode with us. Like, great to get the insights, behind your music, behind your lyrics. Looking forward to more from you. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah,
It's
thank you for actually I never know what to expect, because a lot of people are like, yeah, well, I'll interview you, and then you kind of go in there and they're like,
what do you think about Coca-Cola, son?
What's your favorite band? And I like that I didn't expect to actually like really get, and you kind of like made me have to like rethink a lot of my own ideas about what I wrote, which I think that was really nice, because I haven't. Yeah,
He does that.
yeah.
I like to know where people come from.
Yeah, no, I like it. It gave me some clarity into myself, which is I really appreciate that. That was really fun.
You're very composed, and like on the spot, it seemed like you'd written this all down before. I'm like, your answers were like very well
And
thought
what's
out.
that on that table?
Hey, you got a teleprompter? It's his sigil magic's been working through him. It's that magic. It's coffee magic. That's what it is.
That's it.
He went into the bathroom. He had some kind of magical ritual that we didn't know about. That's just it. All right. You know what? Actually, you can chime us out.
Ooh.
Yeah, you're allowed to chime us out. So,
All right.
before you do, let me say thanks everybody for listening. Mickey Blurr, check out his music on Bandcamp. And this is Next Stage Podcast. Thank you all for listening. We love you all.
Peace.
Bang a gong, get it on.